Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Tonight we are going to be talking about comprehension in reading, specifically in guided reading. So I wanted to give everybody a chance to go ahead and come on in. If you are here, I'd love to know where you're from and what grade you teach. If you could just leave a comment down below letting me know what grade you teach and where you are, because it does help me when I'm answering questions and things like that to know what my audience is, so I know what range of grades I have. Also, if you look above in the description, it says something like click here for the handouts or click here for the to grab the handouts from this live. If you click on that, it's going to take you to a free set of handouts where I've gone through and I've kind of compiled notes on this live so that you'll be able to refer to them later so that you have access to them. Another thing, if you'll notice, it says click share so all your teacher friends can watch. If you would go ahead and click share, that would be fantastic. The more often likes are done on a post, comments are made on a post, and shares are done on a post, Facebook has like an algorithm where it reads it as more people are interacting with it, so they're going to expose it to more people out there so more people can see it. So if you would please make sure to comment, hit like, hit share, do those kinds of things. And if you hit the share button, let your teacher friends know about it, because this is a topic they may also be interested in. And we're going to be specifically zeroing in on teaching comprehension during the guided reading time period. So not necessarily reading comprehension as a whole or in whole group instruction, but really teaching it within the small group setting. Now, the reason that I am doing this entire series of lives that I've been doing, I have several. If you look in the description box above, if you hit like see more, because it's very long, at the very bottom of this, when you click see more, you'll see a list of all the other lives that I've done about guided reading. I've done probably 4, I think, other guided reading, specifically lives about how to teach guided reading. And the reason I'm doing that is because I have written a brand new program called Mastering Guided Reading. It will be 6 volumes when it is done, and I have just finished the first volume, and it is for 2nd grade, and it is basically where you could have 4 differentiated leveled text with the same teacher lesson plan. So it takes guided reading and makes it easy to plan, easy to implement, and easy to make sure you're covering everything your students might need. So I've specifically been doing this live to celebrate that, and tonight I will be giving away 1 copy of the Growing Bundle. Today is the first day that it's been available. I went ahead and listed the Growing Bundle. It will have all 6 volumes, and it tells you an approximated date of when all the volumes will be ready. It is listed for $200 in my store. The link is above. If you purchase the bundle, you'll be saving $80 by getting it as a bundle rather than buying it individually. And I will be giving away 1 copy of that to 1 lucky winner tonight. And the way to enter, super simple. All you have to do, actually, I'm not going to, let me rewind real quick. I'm not going to be giving it away tonight. I'm actually going to be announcing the winner on Wednesday at my next Facebook Live. So let me make sure that's clear. But to enter, it is very simple. All you have to do is leave a comment below. If you leave a comment, you are then entered for the $200 bundle. It's that simple. So make sure you comment below on the post, and I would love any likes or shares that you're able to do as well. So we'll keep it simple so that you can enter and make sure you get a chance to win. And I will announce it on my next Facebook Live, which will be Wednesday. Now, today's video is all going to be focusing on reading comprehension and guided reading, and I'm specifically focusing on fiction. When I started breaking down what I wanted to say and what I wanted to cover, I realized if I covered fiction and nonfiction, this video would take 100 years. So if you would like to do me to do a similar video all about nonfiction, just comment below and I'll add it to my calendar of things. I have not published a Facebook Live calendar for August, but I certainly can if there is an interest in that. I know I've had some requests for word study and a couple other things. So if there's a topic you would like to see another live on, please make sure to leave it in the comments. Not only does that enter you for the $200 bundle, it also lets me know what you'd like to see. So let's get started and jump on in and talk about what is reading comprehension. And I found this quote, and I thought it was a perfect way to summarize what is reading comprehension, and it's from the Reading Rockets website. And if you've never been to that website, it's actually pretty informative. It has a lot of just easy information, and I used some of it when I was doing my master's as actually references, because some of it was research based. But they say that comprehension is the understanding and interpretation of what is read. To be able to accurately understand written material, children need to be able to 1, decode what they read, 2, make connections between what they read and what they already know, and 3, think deeply about what they have read. Now this is important because the reason that we teach comprehension is to avoid a world of word colors. And I know that you've seen them in your classroom. To me, they're the hardest type of reader to teach. And that is the type of child that is completely fluent, can read everything beautifully, but when you ask them what has happened in the story, they have no idea what has happened. And since we can't crack open their heads and see what's going on in their brains, it's really hard to figure out where the breakdown is. And the reason you want to teach comprehension is because we want to create adults that are literate, that are thoughtful, engaged in their reading. They're able to be analytical, to know if it's influenced by the author's beliefs. You want them to take all that written information and account when they're making decisions. So reading comprehension is critical. That's something we need from our future citizens. So let's talk about where is comprehension really going to be taught in the guided reading setting. And what I've done is I've gone through the breakdown of what is guided reading and what does it look like in each of the pieces. I actually have a Facebook Live that I did previously called Step by Step Guided Reading. It is linked above. If you click the See More, it will show you the link to that guided reading Facebook Live if you want me to go through the steps of guided reading. But I'm going to go through and kind of talk about what happens in each part of the guided reading lesson to then get me to the point of comprehension. So in the very beginning, kids are rereading familiar texts. The reason that they're doing this is because that is developing fluency. One of the easiest strategies to become a more fluent reader is to reread materials. Then you're going to introduce the text. What that does is it models for readers that they need to access background knowledge and schema before they read so that they can make sure they can understand the text better. Then you're going to introduce tricky words. These are words that you anticipated that students may struggle with when reading the text. This should be, 2 to maybe 4 if it's a long amount of reading, words at the most that you discuss with your kids and you model decoding skills with your students. I have an entire video all devoted to tricky words that is also listed in the description box above. After you go over the tricky words, you're going to set the purpose for reading. And what this does is it shows students that it models good reading skills, and that good readers think of questions they want answered before they read. And it could simply be what happens next, or why did the character do this? Or, when you get really involved in a text, you automatically ask those questions, but children don't know that. So they might want to know, why is this character acting this way? Or what's going to happen next? Or how does it all end? Those are simple questions, but it's still a style of questioning and setting the purpose for your own reading for entertainment. So it carries over into guided reading when you provide that question, that good readers create questions before they read to be answered. Then students are going to do a silent reading, and where they basically take the time to apply all these things you taught them, all the decoding skills, all the comprehension skills, and they read for themselves and they're answering the question that you asked. After kids have read the text silently, then you're going to do a discussion. And this is where the comprehension piece really comes into play. And this is where you're going to take the time to develop comprehension. So it's going to happen at the end. One of the reasons I wanted to make sure to do this video is because I have found in my experience, I have noticed that many teachers, especially in the younger grades, really do a great job of rereading, introducing tricky words, introducing the text, setting the purpose, and then the kids reading. But the piece that is left behind and is left out or is shortened because maybe they don't have very long in group really is that discussion time. And especially as you start to get into 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, that is absolutely crucial that these kids are able to understand the text. Now, I'm not saying that teaching decoding skills and how to break apart words is not important, because we know that for the most part, word strategy, word attack skills, really for the most part, phonics ends in 2nd grade. So it's crucial that kids know that, yes. But it's also important that they know what's happening in the text, or they're really not even reading, they're just word calling. So it's a delicate balance. So don't shortchange that time after reading. Now, I loved this breakdown of what do I teach. So if you struggle, like, I know I teach comprehension, but what exactly does that mean? This is from Jennifer, I'm going to say it wrong, Jennifer Saravello, I think is how you say your name. And it is from the Reading Strategies book. I just recently got it. It's actually great. It's perfect for guided reading. And it's any kind of strategy, basically, for about anything there is. And she did a great job. She broke down what she felt was the most empowering order of how to teach things to kids. So the order of instruction. And I actually really like this. So when she got to comprehension for fiction text, she said, okay, first kids have to know plot and setting. So they really need to know the basics. That would be your story elements, your retelling, your recounting of your stories. All those things would be in the plot and setting. Then after they do that, they could dive deeper in the character. And that becomes where you talk about traits, analyze the character, you talk about their responses and their motivation. Then after that, you can dive deeper into vocabulary using context clues, figurative language. This could also be poetry if you wanted to do that, but it's not only in poetry. It's also sometimes finding similes and how that creates a great visualization for the reader would be one thing you could teach. And then after that is themes and ideas. And that would be like your morals and of the theme, moral, heart of the story, those kind of things. Now, you may be saying, okay, that's great. And in second grade, I know that we do teach a lot of stuff on character and we do teach a lot of stuff in beginning and end. Got it. But we really don't dive as deep into vocabulary and figurative language and themes and ideas. I'll just do that a little bit of poetry because, the big kids do that. And so what I did is I went through, and it's teeny tiny text for you guys. But what I did is I went through the Common Core standards for second grade. Now, I know that not every state teaches the Common Core anymore. I know that it is sometimes the states may have just basically, like in Georgia, for the most part in second grade, they pretty much changed the name and the standards are almost identical. I know that Georgia is not the only state that did that. And I chose just a 0 in second grade because simply that is what I wrote the Mastering Guided Reading for. But I could probably do this for any grade level. But I really wanted to show you is that even though you may say, we really don't do much with figurative language and vocabulary and themes, you do. This is a breakdown of everything from the Common Core standards that has to do with those parts of comprehension. And you can see that the figurative language and the vocabulary part is huge. It is a huge, actually, chunk of the standards. Now, if you are coming across and you have a question you would like me to answer, please make sure to leave it in the comments below. I meant to mention this in the beginning, and I think I forgot. I have a hard time sometimes answering questions as I'm doing the video itself, but I will have a end of the video slide just devoted to questions, and I'll go back and see what people have asked. So please, if you think of a question, go ahead and ask it. Don't wait to the end to ask now so that I can go back and look at it, because sometimes the stream that I see is not in real time necessarily. It may be a delay. So go ahead and ask it if you see a question. But this is a list, like I was saying, of all the second grade Common Core standards. And you may think that you don't teach much as far as figurative language and vocabulary, but you do. There's several that are devoted to context clues. There are several using a glossary and dictionary, understanding the relationship and nuances between words. There's compound words. All that really fits into that kind of domain area, if you want to call it that big, broad idea. So we do a lot of it, even though we're teaching smaller young children. So it's important that you're doing that. And I like the breakdown because I thought it was easy to remember, plot and setting, character, vocabulary, and figurative language and themes and ideas. So I thought it was a great just kind of way to remember it. Now, if you want a copy of this breakdown of the standards right here in the handouts, it is a little larger so that you can read it and refer to it yourself if you're planning for guided reading. So it is in the handouts. I know it's itty bitty. I just wanted you to be able to see that, we do teach all of that, and it is even though you may think, hey, they're little kids. So what I have right here is I'm going to give you an example of something that you can do during that discussion time with your kids to cover each one of those big ideas. So for example, if you're doing plot and setting, one of the things that you can do is a round table retell. And I took this idea from It's like the storytelling game that they do kind of at camps and things like that. It's called the team story game. And the idea of a team story game is, one person says one sentence of a story that they make up out of their head, and then the next person has to add on to that by adding another sentence, and somebody else next in the circle adds on to the story by adding another sentence. So everybody's telling the story sentence by sentence by sentence. They're making it up, and it creates this really silly story by the end. And they all kind of build on each other. Well, a roundtable retell is very similar to that. What I would do first is I would review what the elements of a story are, and I would do this specifically because I'd want my kids to be making the connection between what is in a retelling to how the story elements support that. And I have in my Mastering Guided Reading pack for you guys, in one of the stories that we do, I have mini posters that you can use of the different story elements. So if you'd like to see that, that is actually in the preview. If you would like, there's an entire book and all the materials are listed in the preview on TPT. So if you click on it, you can also get those mini posters free, and also try the Mastering Guided Reading in your own classroom to see if it works with you. But I would go over each of the story elements. I'd leave the little mini posters out so I could, after I reviewed them, they could look at them, and then each student would tell a part of the story. So the first child could say, in the beginning, the little bird is sitting in the tree. And then that would be one sentence. And the next child could say he was feeling very lonely because his parents were gone. And as the children are retelling it, I would tap each poster to show the element they've just described. For example, in the beginning, the little bird sitting in the tree, I would tap main character and I tap setting. And, and the little bird was feeling very lonely because his parents were gone, talking about character. So you can kind of relate that retelling that they're doing piece by piece by piece all throughout the story, or all throughout the table, so they can see connection between how the elements are embedded in a retelling. So basically, each child will take a piece of the story and build upon it until the entire story is done. So that's something that's fun, it's interactive, and it's a great way to tie in story elements in a retell. And you can also do the same thing for beginning, middle, and end. They would still be doing the retell, but you could tap the beginning, middle, and end so they can make a connection and what part of the story is in the beginning, what part starts in the middle, and what part's in the end. This is an example of something that you could do for teaching character in that discussion part. I learned this from, I think, Debbie Miller. I think it's when I saw her do it. I'm almost positive that's who it was. But she came, I want to say she came to our school. I may be crazy. I don't know. It was a long time ago. I'm almost positive she came to our school and she modeled a read aloud with our kids. I don't know. I'm pretty sure. But she did an activity where they stepped into the story. So she read aloud a story, and it was a real cute story. It was all picture-based. Hers was, for the most part. But you could do this with any text that had good pictures. And you would actually have the kids step into the story, and they create what's like a tableau, and they'd actually pose like the characters are on the picture on the page in the story, to actually become the characters. And then the teacher interviews the character. And what you'd be doing, well, how do you feel right now, Redbird? What's making you feel that way? Where are your mommy and daddy? And it's easier for kids to answer those deeper and higher level questions because they take on that role as the character. And they're unintentionally really using text evidence, because they would say, I'm sad because my mom and dad are gone. Well, that's text evidence. In the book, it said the mom and dad were gone and the bird was lonely. So they're using the text to answer the question. They may not even realize they're doing it because they're becoming the character. So it's a great way to encourage answering questions, and also using text evidence from the character's point of view. So then you can do character motivations and responses, and, why did you do this? What made you feel this way? Those kinds of things. So that's like, I call it step into the picture, is another activity that you could do. It doesn't have to take long. It can take 5 minutes. It could be several kids doing the same picture and answering a different question. So this is a simple activity that you can do at the beginning of your guided reading session. You can ask kids as they're reading, is there any word that you come across that you're really not sure what it is? If you come across a tricky word, I want you to put a post-it on that page, or a post-it I use flags a lot. They're the smaller post-its. I want you to flag that word. And then after we finish reading, I want to talk about it and come back to it. So you can ask kids if they did tricky words and say, what do you think that word is? How did you figure it out? And you can use that as an on-the-spot way to teach using context clues at a sentence level, on a paragraph level. You can ask them what makes sense, what looks right, what sounds right. All those kinds of strategies are things that you could teach right there about using using strategies to figure out a tricky word. And it's simple. It doesn't take anything extra other than a little flag and a little prompt at the beginning before they read. Now, our last one, and I meant to grab it, and I don't know where mine is. I may have gotten rid of it, actually. I think I did get rid of it. But this is called Heart of the Story, and this is to teach theme and ideas, which seems like a very big concept, and it is a very big concept. In second grade, you do have to teach moral as part of Aesop's Fables, so this is a great way to tie it in. But I took a garden glove. I got it really cheap at like Ace Hardware or whatever, and it was a cream colored glove, so it was easy to write on. And I took permanent markers and I wrote character setting, problem, event, solution on each of the fingers. And then as kids retold the story, they could touch each of the elements, similar to the first activity. But the very center of the palm said heart of the story. And the heart of the story is where they talk about what the big idea is, and so it's kind of getting to theme, touching on that. Or it can also be what the lesson the character learns, and you're kind of getting into moral. So it's a great way to kind of scaffold that before you really start introducing what Aesop's Fables and the moral is at the end. But you can say, what's the heart of the story? What did the character learn? What's the big idea the author wants you to walk away with after reading that text? And that's a fun, simple way, because they're actually putting on the glove and touching it. And you can do that as a simple activity when you're putting on doing story elements. Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about, and is to get you to be aware of, is, and this the reason I'm actually even writing this is because it actually happened to me. I remember very vividly, I was sitting in front of my third grade class. I was doing a whole group mini lesson, and a child raised their hand, and they said, "Do you want us to connect, or do you want us to make a question?" And I was like, as I realized I had been teaching a week on questioning, a week on finding the theme, a week on, visualizing. And what happened is kids saw these skills as something you practiced in isolation. And good readers don't do that. Good readers do them all at the same time. It is like a carefully woven ball of yarn, and you really can't unweave it. It's all tangled together, because you, as a reader, as an adult, I'm constantly visualizing and thinking about what's going to happen next, and predicting and wondering, why did the character do that? Why is this seems very out of character. This doesn't make sense to me. I wonder why they did that. What happened to them in the past that made them act this way. All of those things are good reading strategies as an adult we do, but kids don't know how to do it. So what happens if you teach these skills in isolation? They practice them in isolation, and they don't realize that you should weave them seamlessly into your understanding and comprehension of the text when you read. So what I want to show you is how you can, in guided reading, get away from the whole isolation trap. Now, I will say, when I wrote the Mastering Guided Reading program, it does have a specified teaching focus. So each book does have a quote-unquote isolated focus. However, the bigger picture is that is my time for instruction, but you can see that I've embedded other strategies and other big ideas as I've gone. So I'm going to take Little Red Bird. This is the book and lesson books, because there's 4 levels of the text. These are the books, the lessons, and materials that are free for you. Like I said, all you have to do is go to the preview link in the TPT, click one of the TPT ones, links to the product, and in the preview you'll get this free. This is the Redbird text, and this is day 1 down here. And I put a clip of it in here, but you really can't see it. So what I want to show you is, just in the discussion part, I covered answering questions, character feelings using text evidence, inferring, and story elements, all just in that discussion time. So that is a weaving of the plot and setting. It is a weaving of character and character analysis, and also some deeper thinking. Now, it doesn't go over the vocabulary and figurative language, and it doesn't go over theme and moral. So I will tell you, it doesn't go into that. However, this is the first book in the series, and so I'm not shocked that I don't cover those things yet. Those are things that probably will be covered a little bit later in the program. But for example, it says, how does Little Bird feel at the top of the page? Point to the word in the text that makes you think this way. That'd be character, analyzing the character, and using text evidence. Then they might have to infer to figure out his feelings, because they have to figure out he was alone and he was lonely. Why do you think the bird hid, and it's going to be something they're going to have to infer. It's not directly stated in the text because they have to figure out he was nervous or maybe a little afraid. And then it says, in the text, it says the birds saw him, stopped singing, and stared. Why do you think they did this? So they have to predict why do they think the birds did this? And they also have to infer, because it does later say in the text why they looked at him. Then so that's kind of embedding of inferring. It is the character feeling and answering questions. And then I'm going to go into the isolated focus of the teaching point, which is good readers need to keep track of the story elements when reading. These are kind of like the parts of the story. When a reader can remember the story elements, they can remember and retell the story better. So then you're going to introduce each of the story elements and share the poster. And you're going to stress that setting its place and time. So that is an example of the lesson, just day one discussion. That's just day one discussion. And then we're going to go deeper and look at the other parts. But you could see that we hit a lot just by discussing, answering questions and talking about the text. Now, it is question time. So I'm going to come back over here. And if you haven't asked a question, this would be a great time to do it. If you haven't made a comment below, make sure that you're commenting below, because that is how you're entering for the $200 bundled giveaway of the entire Mastering Guided Reading with the Word Study, all 6 volumes. So make sure that you're commenting below if you have any questions. Also, while I'm waiting for my computer to refresh so I could check to see if you have any questions, my next Facebook Live is Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'm going to be doing something called Making the Puzzle Pieces Fit, and that is kind of a catch-all for guided reading. And if there is a question that I have not answered about guided reading during any of these lives, I would love to hear it now, because my goal for that Facebook Live is to kind of answer any of the lingering questions you have. But in order to do that, I need to know what your questions are. I have been keeping a list of some of them, but I would love to know what you need to know, what burning questions you still have, so I can make sure to address it. Now, let's see if there's any. What grade levels are your Mastering Guided Reading from Joan Wilson? Joan, I wrote it specifically for 2nd grade. The text levels are end of 1st grade, beginning 2nd grade, mid 2nd grade, end 2nd grade for every book in the series. As I get further into the series, the later volumes, I'm going to drop the end 1st grade, and it will become beginning 2nd grade, mid 2nd grade, end 2nd grade, beginning 3rd grade. So you can hopefully follow some of your readers' growth as they grow in 2nd grade. You could use this technically with other grade levels. It would just have to be students that are reading on a 2nd grade reading level. So you could use it with other grade levels if the kids are reading on a 2nd grade reading level. You wouldn't want to use it on 3rd grade with kids that are reading on a 3rd grade level. That wouldn't make sense. So for 2nd grade kids that are on 2nd grade level. So Chris Euler said, what do kids bring with them to guided reading? I'm trying to decide. I may come back to that question because I can't decide if I want to answer that now, because I really want to pull the stuff to show you. But I can tell you simply, when I did guided reading, my kids brought nothing. I'll just make it simple for you. My kids brought nothing. I had it all prepared and all ready for them and at the table, because I found that if kids had to dig and find things to bring with them, it took longer, and it took longer to get the guided reading lesson settled, get kids moving and going. So I kept it all at the table, ready for them to go, because it made transitions more seamless. So that was another one. Will you be labeling the text by guided reading level or Lexile level? The text are, right now the texts are leveled by Fountains of Pinnell level and DRA level, but it is not, they are not approved by either Fountains of Pinnell or DRA. So they're approximated levels. So I can't say that they are something that the programs have put their seal of approval on it. Melody says, you've been so helpful with your Reading Live PD videos. I start school late in August and can't wait to start the ground running with all your tips and resources. I'd love to win it. I'm so excited to hear that. Thank you so much, Melody. That's wonderful. Do you have anything, Markeisha, I hope I'm saying that right, Markeisha Herring, because you always comment on everything. I know your name. I just don't know how to say it. I'm so sorry. Do you have any plans to make a third grade packet? I actually have considered it. I will tell you that the volumes I posted in today, if you go to my TPT store, you'll see that I've posted the $200 bundle with all the volumes for the program. And in the preview, it has my approximated publishing dates of each of the volumes. And it's going to take me all the way till mid-May. These take a very long time to write. They're very, very thought intensive and time intensive for me to write these things. Just this pack right here, I think it was 400 pages, give or take, just for volume 1, and it is not the short. It is not going to be the longest actually volume. I do have 2 shorter volumes, and I think I have 1 more volume that's the same, and I have 1 more that's longer. So they're actually very time consuming. So if I write one of these for 3rd grade, it will probably not happen until next school year. I would not anticipate writing it this school year. So it's something that would not happen until the 2018 school year. So let's see. Any other questions? Oh, I did say it right. I'm so glad I said it right. I was afraid I said it wrong. I just refreshed my page so I can see if there's any new questions, because sometimes it's hard to see any questions. It looks like, because I can't see the any other questions right now, if many of my students are reading on a 2nd grade and below at the beginning of the year, so they would benefit. Yes, if your kids are reading on a 2nd grade and below that level at the end of the year, you could actually still use this program, because it's more about where the kids are reading necessarily than the grade level itself. And there's a lot of overlap between 2nd grade Common Core standards and 3rd grade Common Core, because I did teach both grades when Common Core was out. It was when I was first out, so I do have a good bit of experience for those grade levels. Any other questions about? I don't think it's pulling all the questions for me. Let's see if it does it. Sorry to be like dead air time. I'm still learning this. How long is a typical, Joanna said, how long is a typical guided reading lesson? It's a great question. A typical guided reading lesson should be about 20 to 25 minutes maximum, because you've got to make sure that you're not, the lesson doesn't take so long. So then whatever the other kids are doing, you've got to make sure that they can sustain that activity independently for that amount of time. So for the most part, my kids could really stay in groups for 25 to 30 minutes. However, it was everybody else that was falling apart. So I really tried to aim for 20 to 25 minutes. I did have a group of, I think, 17 or 18 teachers in the United States field test this Mastering Guided Reading program from March to May of this past school year, and they collected data on it. And one of the things I had them come back is let me know how long their lessons were taking, and they said between 20 and 25 minutes, including the word study program. So it does really fall in line with that 20 to 25 minute time period. If you're interested in the results of the case study that I wrote about the effectiveness of this program, I can put the link above in the description if somebody reminds me in the comments to do so. But I did write a case study about the results and the progress that the kids made in the 8-week trial run, I guess you could say, of the program. I can tell you the average child made between 88 and 89 lexile in 8 weeks, which is pretty good because there's only 200 lexiles in 2nd grade. So I always trip on it. I always get nervous. Deldrika, she says, do you meet with every group every day? And that is, I'll go ahead and answer it, but I also will be going over scheduling and then making the puzzle pieces fit. I did not meet with every group every day. It just wasn't practical. I had too many kids. I usually had between 4 to 5 groups. And if every group is 20 minutes, that'd be 80 to 100 minutes in guided reading. And I just didn't even have that in my time block. So I'll try to share a whole group or a daily schedule that I've used in the past so that you can see the breakdown of my entire day, how long guided reading was and where it fit in. Usually I met between two groups a day. Sometimes I would get two groups in a very short group, which was more like almost like conferencing is what it ended up really being, or like a literature circle for some of my upper readers that I did at that time. But generally it was only 2 groups a day. Most of the administrators I've had have been very understanding with that. I've only had one administrator that wanted every group every day. And it just wasn't practical because we just don't have the minutes like in the schedule. If you added it together, it wasn't even something we could possibly even do. when you like, I don't know if have you ever sat down and totaled what you're being required to do by your administration? Because 1 year I did that. I totaled the amount of time we were required for each subject area. And the only way we could do it is if we didn't have lunch, recess, or went to the bathroom. I was like, well, this is very practical. This is something that's not going to work. So keep that in mind. You might want to do some math right there to figure out if what you're being asked for is predictable and is even attainable. Let's see. Would you recommend the books we read are used in order, or read and used in order? This is by Megan Groves DeLong. They can be used in the order that I've written them. The word study skills, if the way that I've organized it, and I'll show you here, the way that I've organized the text, and it just depends on where you are in your reading as a guided reading teacher, partially too. I'll say that. So this is a chart that is available in the download that you'll get free, but it's an overview of all the text. It has the titles, the 4 levels for the book, the running word count, if the fiction or nonfiction and what genre it is, the teaching point or focus, the writing focus, and also a word study list. So each of the books are written as almost like a closed text around a word pattern. So you can teach the books in order, and you can teach them using that word study because they are written in a way that it builds upon itself. However, I also tried to keep the plans to a degree where you could also teach out of order, because if I were personally teaching using this book to teach, I would not teach it in order. I would teach it to where my students were. So if I had a group on a level H, I would pull the text from the program that are a level H. Now, some teachers may not want to do that, and they may want to say, okay, but we're doing story elements and plot and beginning, middle, and end the next couple of weeks. So I really want my guided reading books to follow that, so they could choose Redberg and A Stinky Smell and also Pat the Pirate, because those 3 books are all about story elements and sequencing. So they might want to use that because it supports where they're doing the whole group lessons. So you have the option. You could teach it in the order. You don't have to teach it in the order. I am writing... I wrote a program called Developing Readers. There's only 1 unit. I'm halfway through the 2nd unit, and it is whole group mini lessons, and it's kind of like a bulleted list of what you can do each week in reading. And so it's somewhat open-ended, but it has all the materials, all the text, questions, and things like that to help you support you in your teaching. And I actually have a Facebook Live video on the program itself. If you go back to my video library, my videos, it will show you everything that's in the program. But right now I only have Unit 1. I am writing other units, and I'm writing all the units so that they correlate with the guided reading program. And I am writing a correlation guide. So if you're teaching this in your whole group lesson, then you can do this in the mastering guided reading in your small group, and it will all be laid out for you. And that is something I am also writing. That's part of the reason that this is going to take me so long to write for 2nd grade, because I'm doing more really than just the guided reading. I'm also writing the whole group lesson plans. And if you look in the videos, you will see a video to that program. And if someone reminds me in the comments, I can also leave a link in the description box of the Developing Readers. If you're interested in the correlation guide that I have so far, I have already correlated all the way, probably the first 12 to 16 weeks of school, depending on how you'll I don't know when. I did it by weeks because I didn't know necessarily when you would start school or anything. But if you're interested in seeing that, leave it in the comments, and I can also publish that so you can see my rough draft of how I'll be correlating everything in the order I'm teaching. I've also gone ahead and for the most part written a curriculum map for the entire year. I'm up to May, or that was in Georgia. May is the end of the year, so I'm up to the end last few weeks of what I will be teaching in what order, and how many weeks I'll spend on each concept that will be for the Developing Reader whole group, which will be supported by the Mastering Reading Guided Reading Program. And if you want to see that working copy, I'm happy to show you guys that as well. As long as you can remember, it's a rough draft. It is still a working copy. And I hope that all makes sense, because that feels like one big, long run-on sentence. Let's see if there's any more questions. Oh, I love it. That have the whole, that sounds wonderful for whole group. Excellent. So I'm so glad this sounds like something you guys could use. Let me see if there's any more questions. I think that looks like all of it. If there, it says, let me go back. We'll be adding several of these reading strategies. That's wonderful. Yes, and I love the roundtable retail. Someone made a comment. It's a great way to encourage students to talk. It is a great way to get students to talk. And if you really want to take it further and you really want to get into that written recounting part of it, one of the things that I've done is um, I've assigned pieces of the retail. You need to tell the beginning, you need to tell the middle, and you need to tell the end. And it usually works best if you have 6 kids. And so the kids that are writing the beginning may not be next to each other, because when it's time for them to hold up their whiteboards, because I say, you know, you write the beginning, what happens in the beginning, you write the middle, and you write the end. And hopefully you have 6 kids in the group. So I'll do that 1, 2, 3, then 1, 2, 3. And so when it's time to talk about it, I'll have the 2 kids that were ones that were beginning hold up the board. And did they come up with the same beginning? Are they different? Are they same? Why are they different? The same? And that's still the same concept of the story roundtable retail, but it's now becoming a written activity, and it's really encouraging students to become analytical and critical, because they have to figure out why did I include this in the beginning but she didn't, or you know, should I have included this in my beginning, or is that really part of the middle? So it's interesting for to hear your kids. Christine says she uses the glove too. So I'm so glad to hear that. And you have the heart in the middle too. I love the heart in the middle idea. I love this chart with the standards. Is it available for downloads? I'm assuming, I think that was from Kim Thompson Hill. If you were talking about this chart right here that I showed you, it is available for download. It is actually in the preview. If you want to download the preview, I'm pretty sure it's in the preview. I'm 99% positive it's in the preview. I don't have it. I can't look at the preview this second, but it is in the preview. It should be in the preview, and if it's not, I can certainly go back and add it tonight if someone will leave it. Christine, will you send me a Facebook message, please, reminding me to add it to the preview if I haven't, please? I'd appreciate it. Let's see. Anything else? Oh, someone else likes Jennifer Savello. If you like this, oh, I know what I wanted to tell you. One more thing, and I'm sorry, this is probably taking too long. I probably need to get off soon. If you are looking for activities for comprehension, I want to make sure I cover this. I adored this book. Now, I will say a lot of it is perfect for independent activities after guided reading, or if you're looking for student activities, but you can take the meat of it and the idea and apply it to your guided reading lesson. But it is called Revisit, Reflect, and Retell. It is an older book by Linda Hoyt. And she's done it by having conversations about the text. She's got it where you have some assessment tools where kids are doing written reflections. She's got it for fiction and informational text. It's got guided reading, or it's got surveys, and look! It's the hand I was just telling you about. I didn't even know that's where I got it from, but apparently that's where it came from. And it's got graphic organizers. I mean, it's got everything. This book has been around for a long time, but I have loved it. It is a well-used copy. If you're looking for another resource, Jan Richardson, she does the next step in guided reading. I liked her stuff. I found that she was very heavy, and her transitional readers were very heavy on the plot and setting and characters, and maybe not quite as heavy on vocabulary and figurative language and theme and moral. But she did a great job, definitely, with the two. She was fantastic. And if you're looking for someone to give you right there how it is idea of reading, this is Reading Essential by Reggie Routman. Love this book. It really transformed how I thought about reading as a whole, and what my reading block should look like, and what are the things that are important to me as a reading teacher. So it's not so much guided reading, but it's more of what does flexible groups, what do small groups, what does whole group, what does all that look like in your classroom, and the why. Something I appreciated. So those are a couple great suggestions for you guys. So I hope that answered some of your questions. If there are questions that I haven't answered, I'll try to go back and go back to the comments and do so. Author's name for the book again. I'll hold it up. This one's Reggie Routman. Reading Essentials. Revisit, Reflect, Retell. It's by Linda Hoyt. Someone said, does she do interactive read-alouds? I think Linda Hoyt did do interactive. She's written several books. She also is, I'm pretty sure her name's pretty popular on the research front. Maybe not. Maybe it's Linda Gamble. I could be wrong. But I know that she's written several books, and this is the next step in guided reading. There's actually 2 books, and I'm in the process of reading her second book now. It's by Dr. Jan Richardson. So that is the end of it for tonight. Make sure that you leave a comment, even if it's just hello, to enter yourself in the $200 valued bundle of the Mastering Guided Reading, every single volume that I have written and will write. Right now I only have volume 6, but by the end of the school year there will be 6 volumes, and there will be 56 books that I am including in the entire lesson, or 56 leveled books. So there'll be 4 levels of each of the 56 texts, and there will be 4 days of lessons for each text. So it's going to be well over your 180 days, so you'll be able to pick and choose levels, you'll be able to pick and choose concepts, you'll be able to review as you feel fit. So the program is written to include more than you will ever need in guided reading, so you can best meet the needs of your own kids. Make sure that you enter below by just leaving a comment to get that $200 valued bundle. I will announce the winner on Wednesday for my last Facebook Live in this series. It will be 8 p.m. on Wednesday. It's called Making the Puzzle Fit, and hopefully I'll get some of your questions then. And the winner does not have to be present at the Facebook Live, because I know that's just not practical to ask, and it's not everybody can be here at all the time. Some people are going to watch this on replay. That's what I would expect from you guys. So if the winner does not have to be present to win, I will simply email the winner that way. I hope you have a fantastic night. If you have any questions, please just leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them as I have time. I hope you have a blessed night, and I shall see you hopefully Wednesday night. Talk to you guys soon.